I'm here with Reverend Justin Hancock. Justin is a graduate of Perkins School of Theology with a master's in Christian ministries and an ordained deacon appointed to the North Texas Conference. He has a passion for helping people discover who God designed them to be, and he has worked with young adults as a director at the Texas Tech Wesley Foundation and as college pastor at St. John's United Methodist Church in Lubbock, Texas. Justin and his wife, Lisa, are on a journey to discover where God can be found in every type of community. They are volunteers at New Day Amani, a microchurch that primarily serves African refugees in Dallas, and they are co-founders of the Julian Way, an organization focused on discipleship and empowerment with, for, and by those with disabilities. He likes to say that he comes with a firm conviction that God's answer was always yes, even when society or other forces do what they can to tell us no. His greatest example of a life of monastic self-sacrifice is his fierce loyalty and long-standing support of his beloved Chicago Cubs. And we can certainly relate to that. So Justin, it's so great to see you again and talk with you.
It is wonderful to talk to you again, Brian. We were just reflecting before coming on air that there's been a lot of water under the bridge since we last spoke, so it's good to kind of get grounded back in relationship again.
Yes. Why don't you update us kind of on, the latest part of your saga?
Yes, indeed. Well, since I was last with you, I believe these developments were beginning to take shape when we spoke, but have really come to fruition. And basically in July, my wife and I made the very challenging and very tough decision after months of discernment and prayer to take our ministry, the Julian Way, which is our community with, for, and by those with disabilities, on its own in a more independent direction. And we have partnered with a new nonprofit that's called the Neighboring Movement. They focus on very street level asset-based community development, and they're going to spend the next 3 years helping the Julian Way spread its message of education and empowerment and help us become our own freestanding nonprofit by the grace of God. So a lot of exciting things are happening, great ministry. I probably spend a little bit more time than I would like talking dollars and cents, but that's sort of the nonprofit world these days, so I'm really enjoying it.
Well, that is such, exciting news, and I'm so glad for you. I'm so glad for all the people that you're serving and helping and going to be serving and helping going forward. So that's just fantastic news.
We're very excited, and it's opened up really whole new vistas for our work, and we're so grateful for what the Missional Wisdom Foundation gave us as a start, but really looking towards new horizons. And it's a pivotal time, as we're about to talk about with the conversation today, but we couldn't be more ready to get rolling, so to speak.
Well, as things progress, please keep me posted. And, I want to make sure we get the word out through Compassionate Christianity about what you're doing. And so if there's press releases or websites or other, things that you would like us to share in terms of announcements, please pass those along.
Absolutely. And as we approach the end of our time today, I'll do some quick shameless plugging, if you don't mind.
No, of course not. Of course not. Like I said, I want to help get the word out about your work. So there's nothing wrong about that.
Thank you.
So, as you alluded to, we do have an election coming up, and, our country is probably about as polarized as I've ever seen it. Can you talk a little bit about, what your viewpoint, what your experience, what you see relative to where our country is and how you've been able to communicate with folks, kind of like across divides or across, the spectrum of politics and religion.
I would love to, and I want to, of course, note that this is a conversation that pulses through a lot of our work, but also a conversation that I approach with a great deal of fear and trembling. Doesn't quite sound right, but I guess that's the closest adjective I have. What I see both generally in the population and definitely within my own community is so much fear and doubt and really anxiousness. And that doesn't really have to do with one particular perspective or another. I think what is challenging as people of faith in this time and place is we're all swimming in a soup that's got us all sort of cranked up to 11. And I don't recall ever seeing such nervousness broadly along the Christian perspective of whatever political persuasion as I have for this election and in the preceding months. In the past few months, especially with the influence of the coronavirus situation, and I would say that what I try to do within my work with folks with disabilities is just kind of take the prayer practice that God has been leading me through of remaining in the moment, like being fully present to the moment I am having right now, and kind of offer that to other people and say, all that you can control is the fear and the emotions that you're feeling right now. So how do I help you have those conversations, talk about serious subjects, I embrace whatever fear or emotion you're having right now without letting it just carry you off, because I think there are those within the broader culture that would want us as Christians to be carried off on either end. So I'm really, in myself and in those I work with, trying to encourage people to stay grounded in the love of Christ and say whatever happens in November, there is good work to be done. And that's extremely hard from day to day to do, but that's really keeping me tied to the earth, I guess you would say.
Good. Well, I think that's, got to be helpful advice for many folks. There's only so many things we can do, right? Whether it's the pandemic or whether it's the election or what have you.
Yes.
What are your suggestions for religious leaders? What they can do, what they can say at this point in time?
That is, again, one of those questions that is sneaky in its complexity and its temptation to go down all sorts of rabbit holes. But I think the number one thing that I would encourage religious leaders to do is to, number one, pray and be open to what the Holy Spirit is telling them on a daily basis. And that doesn't happen if we're not grounded in prayer and grounded in the scriptures and communing with God on a daily basis. That sounds so like cheesy and, simple, but it's absolutely true. And I would be remiss if I didn't also say that it's a really hard time to watch the news, listen to the news, be at all engaged in the comings and goings and in the deep, heartfelt pain of the country in a lot of ways, and remain grounded, as I said a minute ago. I think for me what works is, number one, that prayer and that being grounded in scripture, and number two, something I said in a video blog I posted shortly after the George Floyd situation is, as Christians and people of faith, and particularly for myself as both a white male pastor, but someone living with a disability, an identity that tends to cut across all sorts of barriers and such, all I can do is bear witness and listen and hold people's pain whenever I get a chance to. So I think as Christians, we are all being given the opportunity to bear witness, come alongside our friends and neighbors, and support out of love and grace and value for human life, no matter what our persuasion politically may be.
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, in times like this, it really gets back to the fundamentals, of what Jesus modeled for us and told us. And, everything else pales in comparison.
Yeah. I absolutely think that is profound and deep. And I'll be honest, and I know the ethos of this conversation is to stay away from one side or the other. But as people of faith, there are things that are going on both sides, and ways that conversations and human beings are being cast and portrayed that are deeply, deeply troubling and deeply, deeply not Christ-like. But for us to immediately rush in and want to yell and scream and burn the house down per se is very, very tempting, but almost just as disruptive. And so all we can do is bear witness and let our integrity as disciples of Christ compel every action we are called to take.
Absolutely. Well, I think one of the things I'd like to do, Justin, is to circle back with you after the election. However it goes, I want to have some conversations with folks about, what do we do now? How do we help the healing process? I think is going to be one of the most important things that we can all do and figure out how to bridge some of these divides that have been growing.
Yes. I think that is something that I am very willing to do and very interested in, and being a leader, both as the convener of the Julian Way and just as a human being.
What a concept, right?
Absolutely.
So speaking of which, before we wrap up, why don't you tell us a little bit more about the Julian Way and kind of like how we can all help?
So how you can all help, that is such a key. We are at a key inflection point right now in the life of the Julian Way. When we first came into being in our own right in 2015 as a part of the Missional Wisdom Foundation, we have always had an ethos of helping folks in the church both come alongside those with disabilities and understand ways in which the church could empower those with disabilities, to be in leadership and to be in positions of power in order to change the whole culture of Christianity to reflect the diversity that we see in the whole world in terms of physical embodiment. And we tried to do that to the best of our abilities, and I think we're very successful from time to time. What we've got an opportunity to do now is that we have gone our own way and are growing independent, more or less, along with the help of the neighboring movement, is to really return to those educational and empowerment roots. So we have an ambitious fundraising plan of $300,000 over 3 years that will help, honestly and frankly, pay me and any staff that we plan to hire, and we do plan to hire some staff, so it's not just me and my wife working out of, as you can see, my bathroom in pandemic times. But we really want to develop curriculum that speaks to things like disability history and civil rights, anti-ableism, to kind of speak to the conversations around race and diversity that are happening in the larger culture, universally accessible spaces and places of worship, an intro to disability theology and the models of disability. How does the church speak and interact with persons with disabilities based on where we've been and where we want to go? So we have an ambitious plan of developing curriculum that really informs the church, comes alongside the church, and also empowers those with disabilities to take control of their own narrative and their own faith journeys. And that's starting now. We kind of began our soft relaunch in July. And what I would ask your viewers and listeners to do is you can go to either the neighboringmovement.org/donate and find the Julian Way as the first or second ministry on that page, or you can go to the julianway.org to donate to our ministry and watch us grow and come alongside us and partner with us as we endeavor on this new adventure. And we've already produced one seminar that kind of looks at the 4 models of disability in terms of how would Christ respond to this way of looking at persons with disabilities through the Gospels. And we've had great success with that seminar already, and we're looking forward to developing more curriculum and really taking advantage of this moment in history to make sure persons with disabilities have a seat at the cultural table as things shift and move and get talked about. So please go to thejulianway.org. I try to post a video blog per week.
Okay, good.
I'm beginning Friday. I'm beginning a podcast that's a little bit of disability, a little bit of community, and some comedy with a friend of mine called Palsies with Palsies.
That's great.
And soon enough, I'll have a link to that podcast up on our website, but donate, find our work, reach out to me via email, get plugged into the Julian Way, because we're doing some exciting stuff and we want to bring as many people into as broad a conversation as we can.
Well, this is just excellent. I'm so glad to hear all of that, Justin, all that progress. And as you know, on Compassion Christianity, we have weekly emails, we have social media, where I try to basically highlight people like you and organizations like what you're doing. So that will now happen in earnest beyond what it has been happening already. And you know, I'll start, you know, following your video blog in particular and, you know, sharing that.
I can't tell you what a boost friends like you are providing, and we will do our best to give you the highest quality content to promote. So thank you so much, Brian, for this opportunity and for always being an engaging and willing conversational partner.
Well, thank you, Justin, for any time we spend together is always cherished by me. And, you know, I really respect what you've done, what you're doing, and can't wait, quite frankly, to, you know, follow it further and see where it goes. And, you know, let's definitely stay in touch on multiple levels.
Absolutely, my friend, we'll do it. And, you know, soon enough, these conversations will become a trilogy and on from there. So I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. Sounds good, Justin. Well, you take care. Thanks again for joining us today.
No problem, my friend. Take care.
All right. Bye now.
Bye-bye.